Here at Mount Sinai Rehabilitation and Human Performance, today with Ariel Prusser. Ariel, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me, Jimmy.
Ariel, share with everybody what you get to do here at Mount Sinai. What's your role?
Yes, so I am the lead clinical research coordinator here at the Brain Injury Research Center. And the main project that I work on here is called The Late Effects of Traumatic Brain Injury.
I'm going to talk about brain donation and find out a little bit more about that. So let's start with the big questions. Why is brain donation so important?
So brain donation is arguably one of the greatest contributions a person can make to research. It helps researchers better understand neurological and brain-related diseases. In fact, they say a single donated brain can provide insight for dozens of research studies. And most of these studies have really the ultimate goal of informing future treatments for neurological disorders. Right now, the only way to definitively diagnose many neurological disorders is actually through a brain autopsy. So for some, these diagnoses can provide answers and even closure for family.
You mentioned research there a couple of different times. How does brain donation contribute to traumatic brain injury research?
So studies have shown a link between sustaining either a single traumatic brain injury or multiple head injuries and later development of dementia or other types of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is also called CTE. However, there's still so much that is unknown about this relationship. And so by studying brain tissue from individuals who have sustained various types and patterns of head injuries, researchers are beginning to understand this underlying mechanism of what we call post-traumatic neurodegeneration. One thing sometimes people forget is that it's also extremely valuable to study brain tissue from people with a history of a head injury who actually recovered well and did not decline later in life. And this helps us understand factors associated with greater outcomes, which of course can ultimately inform treatments.
All right, a question that might come up, it might seem a little bit confusing. What's the difference between being a brain donor and an organ donor? Walk us through that.
Yes. So there is a common misconception that being an organ donor and a brain donor mean the same thing, or that being an organ donor means that you're automatically a brain donor too, and that's actually not the case. So as an organ donor, you're agreeing to give your organs to other people in need. However, as a brain donor, your tissue will solely be used for research purposes, and so it won't be given or donated to anyone. So registering as an organ donor does not identify a person as a brain donor for research. And so brain donation is really a separate process.
Important information. Yeah, I didn't know that myself. Thanks for clearing that up. Let's talk about some of those procedures you just mentioned there. What are the brain donation procedures? How does this work?
After a brain donor has passed, the brain bank personnel like myself will obtain written consent for the donation from the next of kin, and then continue with making arrangements for the brain removal. If the donor doesn't pass in the medical facility, the body will be transferred to a facility where a specialist can carefully remove the brain through the back of the head and then is sent to our brain bank for analysis. The body is then returned per the family's instructions for funeral or burial or cremation services. The most important thing to note is that the autopsy procedure does not interfere with any events that are associated with funeral arrangements, and it also doesn't disfigure the face or body in any way.
How does someone start a conversation with their family about brain donation, and what might the family need to do after that conversation takes place?
So at the time of death, or even when death is imminent, your family or next of kin can contact the Brain Bank's 24-hour autopsy hotline, and then research personnel will obtain written consent from them. Interestingly enough, legally in the state of New York, you cannot consent to your own brain donation. So that's a responsibility that actually falls upon whoever you would like to list as your next of kin. So while consent for brain donation can only be obtained from them In the hours following death, you can still make your wishes known by signing what we call an intent document. But because of this consent process, we encourage people who want to donate to have that conversation with your loved ones or person you want to consent on your behalf in order to honor your wishes. So at our center, we have a comprehensive brain donation brochure that you can share with your loved ones to inform them of your wishes, and it really does a nice job of laying out the next steps that they'll need to take. And I'd also like to say that your next of kin can really be anyone who you trust to honor your wishes. So it can be a spouse, adult children, parents, legal guardians, siblings, even your power of attorney or a healthcare proxy.
Yeah, valuable information there from Ariel. Thank you for that. Let's talk about fees. That might be a question people have. Are there any fees to someone donating or their family for brain donation?
There's no cost to you or your family for brain donation, and most brain donation studies, including our own, will actually pay for all expenses involved with the brain donation procurement process.
Interesting. I'm sure that comes up pretty often, and you have to answer that question pretty often. How does brain donation interfere with funeral arrangement? I'm sure that's a question that comes up pretty often.
Yeah, so whatever funeral arrangements you would like to arrange, the brain donation, actual removal process is really quick, and it doesn't interfere at all with any funeral arrangements you'd like to make.
All right, if someone's listening right now and they're thinking about possibly doing this, let's talk about who's eligible for brain donation.
So really anyone over 18 years old can register as a brain donor. Specifically, our brain donation project specializes in collecting brain tissue from individuals who have sustained a traumatic brain injury, or a TBI. So we have quite a few individuals in our cohort who are veterans, former athletes, or even sustained their TBI due to some type of accident. However, you don't need to have a brain injury or even a brain-related disease to become a donor. And this is to ensure that research is thorough, and it's extremely important that scientists study healthy brains to use as a control comparison.
If someone would like to sign up to participate in the study you mentioned, the LETBI study, how would they do that?
I'll say this by saying if you don't have a head injury or any brain-related diseases, you can still register as a donor by contacting the NIH Neurobiobank. However, if you've sustained a head injury and you're interested in really advancing traumatic brain injury research, you can enroll in our brain donation project, which is called the Late Effects of Traumatic Brain Injury. And this is actually one of the only brain donations in the nation that focuses solely on TBI survivors. And we're really excited to announce that we recently received additional funding from the NIH to continue this amazing project. So participants are able to come to our center and participate in a full visit, which includes an MRI scan, blood draw, some cognitive tasks, and a comprehensive interview. And of course, all of our participants are compensated for their time. If you're interested and would like to learn more, you can reach out to our center and get in contact with us either via phone or email, or even stop by the center in person.
Ariel, a lot of valuable information and important information there. Thanks so much for sharing from the Brain Injury Research Center here at Mount Sinai Hospital. Thanks for your time.
Of course, thank you for having me.